Welcome to the Boneyard with Steve Robertson. As always, I am your good friend and host, Steve Robertson, here on the magnificent Monday edition of the Yard. Been a busy day, but I managed to get afloat in the day. Feel great. In the words of Curly Bill Brocious, absolutely spectacular. Feel great. Had a little crick in my neck after the other night, and nice to get that worked out. Get a little peace and quiet. You deserve a little peace and quiet, too. Reminds me, the Valentine's Day special, 2 floats for $99, ongoing. So if you've waited to the last minute and you want to get a unique gift for the loved one in your life, get them 2. Maybe it's a his and hers type deal. Maybe it's a girls' night, whatever. Valentine's Day special, 2 floats, $99. Ordinarily, your first float is $65. They're $89 a piece, but you can get 2 for $99. Come check it out. Call Dana at 662-268-7601. We'll get you going. And let's thank Charles Cross for being a Bulldog. And congratulations to he and his family. It has been quite the journey for him, for sure. Now one of the highest paid offensive linemen in NFL history. Now he's got a Super Bowl ring. Super cool story, man. It is. And I remember when we felt really good about Charles and he committed to Florida State, and everybody's like, wait a minute. We're like, just let it play out. Let's let it play out. He comes to Mississippi State. Marcus Johnson was our offensive line coach. Marcus gets him, and then Mason Miller kind of help make him a pro prospect. You know, Charles already had the natural ability, just needed to gain some weight, get a little expertise. As a matter of fact, Mason Miller was out there at the Super Bowl. Yeah, I had 2 players playing for the Seahawks. So super cool, man. And listen, my rooting interest when it comes to pro sports, okay, outside of the Pittsburgh Steelers, is always our Bulldogs. That's my only emotional investment. I want what's best for the Mississippi State brand. Charles Cross electing to stay home in Mississippi, attending Mississippi State, becoming a first-round draft pick, and now winning a Super Bowl helps advance the Bulldog brand in a little way. And so that's my investment. I wish all of our pro athletes great success, and I'm glad that they were part of our family for a while. They continue to be, and it gives you a rooting interest. I didn't watch the Super Bowl. I'm going to be honest. Everybody's like, hey, which halftime show did you watch? Neither, right? I had work to do. But, I watched, I guess, about 3 plays of it. I ran to the country store here to get some snacks and kind of refuel for the evening rush. And they had the game on. Seattle was up 9-0. And I thought, well, I hope this will work out, And it did. So, but that's my professional rooting interest, is what's best for us. I live in the big maroon bubble. Like anything that's out there in college athletics that affects Mississippi State, I'm interested in. Anything out there in pro sports that shows that Mississippi State is a place that you can achieve your dreams and chase new dreams, I'm for that. I'm all about that. So those are my feelings. I don't care what halftime show you watched. Makes no difference to me. I think it is one of the dumbest arguments in the history of mankind, to be honest with you. Who cares? Like, I can only remember a handful of halftime shows in my lifetime. I remember Michael Jackson, and the big controversy was, did he lip sync? Probably. I remember when Aerosmith and NSYNC and Britney Spears did it. Thought that was pretty cool. But the greatest halftime show I remember is Prince. And I did love the Snoop Dogg and Eminem and Dre halftime show. I guess it was last year. I thought that was pretty cool, too. Mary J. Blige, great. But it's like I don't remember many others. It's just inconsequential to me. It's just 15 minutes. It's a halftime show, right? But, man, people get up in arms about so much stuff. I don't know how to deal with it. I really don't. I'm going to let y'all be y'all. I'm going to be me. I've just got more important things in my life to invest my emotional energy in. Let's thank our friends at Bulldog Burger Company, longtime sponsors of the show. I love Bulldog Burger Company, right? They could put on a halftime show. I'd probably be excited about that. And that's the good thing about Bulldog Burger Company, man. They're just there when we need them, right? And sometimes you need a lunch date with a work colleague. Some days you need a night out with the family. You can accomplish both at Bulldog Burger Company. In the evening, you can have that adult beverage. I wouldn't encourage you to drink on the job. But, if you're okay having a glass of wine for dinner, that's fine. Knock it out. You'll be glad you did. 3 great locations to serve you: University Drive in Stark Vegas, Gloucester Street there in Tupelo, Lake Harbor Drive in the Ridge and Flowood area. Find your own favorites on that great menu. So many great options to choose from. If you're a newbie, just go with the Bulldog Burger. You can't go wrong. If that's the only hamburger you ever ate the rest of your life, you'd be just fine. Things would go okay. And maybe if everybody else is feeling like a burger, and maybe you're not, maybe get that BLT salad. I like it grilled. You may prefer it fried. I'm not judging. No matter how I get a salad, I get ranch dressing because I'm from South Mississippi. It's a requirement. Get that chocolate shake to go. You can ride that ride home with a smile. Bulldog Burger Company, the place where people go to meet. M-E-A-T. Okay, I'm so excited about baseball. I joked with Dana. I goes, if you just go ahead and put me on like an IV drip and just kind of knock me out for a few days and woke me up Friday morning, I would be just fine with that, right? Kind of like that remote control. You just fast forward to the other parts. But, I'm ready for this weekend. Looks like Friday's weather is going to cooperate. We'll see what happens Saturday and Sunday. But rest assured, we'll get the games in. No point in depending on these Facebook meteorologists. Again, the weather app is one of the worst things that's ever happened to society because everybody becomes an expert. And how many times did you stay home last year because somebody wrote on Facebook, hey, it doesn't look good. You don't even know who that person is. I suspect they didn't get a meteorology degree from Mississippi State. But it's like, I just don't want to go away up there. Trust Dr. Brown and his crew. He just doesn't miss, man. When they give you the game times, we'll get them in, okay? So if you're planning to come Friday, you should be good to go. Hopefully you've already requested off early to be here for the game. You might need to take the whole day, though. We don't know. We don't know yet. So we expect to know on Thursday. Now, I'm supposed to speak to Coach Cat from Hofstra on Tuesday, and we'll have that full conversation available for Gene's Page members on Tuesday afternoon, and we'll talk a little bit about it on Wednesday's show. But let's go ahead and dig into Hofstra because I wanted to kind of get some information about Hofstra before I spoke to Coach Cat. It was a bad year last year for Hofstra. They had 4 pitchers. 4 of their primary pitchers have Tommy John surgery and miss all of 2025. More on that a little bit later. They also had 19 freshmen. And by the end of the year, when they realized it was going to be a dog of a year, there were some games they had 5 or 6 freshmen in the lineup. Let's go back and kind of look how last year went. They opened up getting swept at Tennessee. Rough weekend. The Pride scores 2 runs, and they get mercy ruled in all 3 games. 15-0, 18-1, 13-1. That's tough right there, man. You give up 46 runs on a weekend, chances are you're going to lose, and they did. Well, they bounced back, and no midweek game. They bounced back, and they sweep Iona. And a couple of those games went extra innings. They had just enough pitching, just enough clutch hitting to win. They take that weekend. They lose in the midweek to Long Island. And then they travel to Kentucky. So right out the gate, 2 of your first 3 series, SEC teams. Competitive weekend, more competitive than Tennessee, but they do get swept 7-5, 6-1, 9-1. And so you're 3-6 3-7 as you get into the month of March, deeper into it. They win the midweek game over Marist, and then they host UAlbany, and they lose 2 out of 3 there. UAlbany runs out of pitching in game 3, and Hofstra wins that game 20-0. They get Fairfield. Remember those guys? The RPI Kings a few years back couldn't host because they didn't have lights. Well, they win over in Hempstead, New York, 13-2. Mercy rule game in 8 innings. They travel to Fairleigh Dickinson, win that game 14-6. They get Kent State, the Golden Flashes, that weekend. They lose 2 out of 3. They won a bit of a Church League softball game in game 2 on Saturday, 17-11. They get mercy ruled on Sunday, 15-5 in 8 innings. Fordham gets them in a midweek game. Then Monmouth comes in. Hofstra wins that series 2 out of 3. First winning weekend since the Iona series. And they come up just short of the sweep in CAA play by losing in extra innings 12-11. So good weekend. You feel like, hey, we've righted the ship a little bit. They edge Seton Hall 13-12. They get Bill and Mary in a CAA series. They lose all 3 of those games on the road. All very competitive. All 3 of them one-run games. They don't go your way. They lose at Rutgers. They knock off Columbia in the 5-for-5 week. And then they get UNC Wilmington, also a CAA series. They salvaged the game 3. They lose a doubleheader on Friday and then win the game on Saturday. Rematch with Fairleigh Dickinson is canceled, and then they get UConn in a road game at Storrs. They lose that game 12-4. Northeastern, who we played in the regional. Northeastern also won the CAA last year. Dominant pitching, for sure. We knocked them off twice last year down in Tallahassee. But they limit Hofstra to just 1 run in 3 games. Yeah, 19-1 is your composite final from the weekend. They go to St. John's for a midweek game. They get that game 7-6 in Queens. And then Stony Brook, of course, a team that years ago went down to LSU, beat those guys. And that's when Stony Brook was hitting more home runs than anybody, it felt like. Well, they sweep Hofstra in 3 games. 2 of those Mercy Rule games. A lot of Mercy Rule games last year. NJIT, the New Jersey Institute of Technology, they win 12-6 over Hofstra. The weekend series against Delaware goes away with the Blue Hens. Hofstra salvages the middle game, and then they get Mercy ruled in Game 3. Again, a lot of Mercy rules. Another one, April 30th against Seton Hall, 13-2 for the Pirates. Elon, a team that we've played in NCAA play before, rolls into Hempstead, New York, and sweeps Hofstra. Fairly competitive games. The first one's 5-0. 18-17 in Game 2 and then 10-8 in Game 3. They get Towson in another doubleheader type situation. This one works out well. They win the doubleheader and then get the sweep on Sunday. The game against St. John's is canceled. They go to Charleston, lose 2 out of 3 there to close out the regular season. So, looking back at it, it wasn't a great year. And again, if you found out before the season started, you're down 4 of your primary pitchers and you end up 18-36, that's probably about what you'd expect. They go 8-19 in the conference. They do end the year on a winning note. They were 7-22 away from home last year. This episode is brought to you by BetterHelp. Sometimes it can feel like everybody else has it all together when it comes to their love lives. Whether you're married, dating, or single, the truth is most of us are still figuring it out as we go. No matter where you are in your own romantic journey, therapy can help you find your way, help you determine what you want, what feels heavy, and how maybe you could take some of the pressure off yourself. We get it. February's full of flowers, candy, candlelight dinners, stuffed animals, and of course lots of talk about relationships and dating. You may feel left out. And no matter where you are, whether you're married, dating, or single, or just focusing on yourself, you're right on time. Therapy can help you find your way and see more clearly where you want to be. BetterHelp therapists work according to a strict code of conduct and are fully licensed in the United States. BetterHelp does the initial matching work for you so you can focus on your therapy goals. A short questionnaire helps identify your needs and preferences, and their 12-plus years of experience and industry-leading match fulfillment rate means they typically get it right the first time. But if you aren't happy with your match, switch. You can find a different therapist at any time from our tailored recommendations. BetterHelp. Maybe you've heard Mississippi State's own Charles Cross of the Seattle Seahawks playing in the Super Bowl. How about that? Another Bulldog possibly getting a ring here. Super Bowl is here, and that's where MyBookie helps you turn bets into bankroll. Everybody's watching the game. Everybody's got a take. Everybody's got a 7-layer dip recipe. And this is the one game where props matter just as much as the final score. That's why so many people use MyBookie. Their Super Bowl prop board is deep and fun to play. It's the same reason they get talked about on Jimmy Kimmel Live every year when this game rolls around. If there was ever time to get in, it's now. One account, one wallet, bet the spread, live bet the second half, hit the casino during commercials. It all lives in one place. Go to mybookie.ag now and use promo code BONEYARD and get your first bet covered up to $500. That's right. If it doesn't hit, use your bet back bonus token and run it back. Don't just watch the big game, make it pay with MyBookie. You say, well, Steve, what does this year's team look like? Well, I'm so glad you asked. So one of the high points last year of this team, offensively, is they had some guys that could really swing it. Dylan Palmer being one of them. He had 400 last year, just a one tank, but the career leader in triples in Hofstra Pride history. He's drafted in the 11th round by the Pirates and signs a Major League Baseball contract. He was 32 of 36 in stolen base attempts. Luke Mosaic hit 276, but was the leader in home runs with 10 and also had 21 bags and 24 attempts. Also led the team with 7 hit by pitches, but he punched out a lot too. So his career is done. They lost 3 of their top 6 hitters. Sean Lane is another guy that won't be with them. He had 9 home runs last year. As a team, they hit just 43, and they lost about half of that big fly production over last year. And again, remember, they played some freshmen. They did. A guy that they're really excited about, Tyler Castrataro. I'm sure I said that wrong. I did the best I could. He had 274 with 8 tanks last year. He'll be back this year. The top returning home run hitter from a year ago, right? Because they lose, Mosaic and Sean Lane, guys that had some real power. But they're a team, obviously, that's got some talent for their league. What's interesting, too, they picked up a transfer from Missouri. And he initially turned down a lot of money to go play at Wake Forest. We're talking Danny Corona here. 6'3", 215-pounder, a product of the Baylor school. But, grew up a little bit different, I guess, than a lot of other people did. But, was in Mizzou last year, hit 240 with 4 tanks, 16 ribbies, so not a full-time starter, but he did get 37 starts. Right? Everybody plays about 56 games. They played a game in the SEC tournament. So played a good bit, not a ton of production. They're excited to have him. He'll probably be really good in their league. And then he's kind of working through this thing here, looking at my notes. Michael Brown is back. Hit 276 last year, no tanks. 6 of 7 in stolen base percentage, but of the regulars, he had the second highest average, tied with Mosaic behind Dylan Palmer. And so, a guy that's got some experience, Nick Galelo, hit 375 last year, only had 9 starts, but he is a guy they're expecting to take a little bit of a jump this year. And so, again, they lose 3 of their top 6 hitters and both of their biggest power hitters. And Castrataro, of course, is back. And a guy, again, that's got some opportunities. But not a lot of transfers. They did go out a couple of JUCO guys. But, can you imagine having to come in here and face this team in front of this crowd on this weekend, opening a new era? It's going to be tough. Pitching last year was not good. Wasn't good at all, as you guys are well aware. Now, when I talk to Coach Cat tomorrow, we'll see if we can't get an idea of what the pitching rotation is going to look like. The one thing we know for sure is Carlos Martinez will likely be the Friday starter. He was the ace going into the 25 season. He was one of those 4 pitchers that had TJ last year. And to kind of run off for you, just so you know, because some of you will do your own scouting. I've done some of the advanced scouting for you. But Carlos Martinez, Joe Curie, Russell Hunter, and Michael D'Ambrosia, all done. All of them had issues last year. But Martinez, we expect him to be the Friday night guy. He's a righty. We expect to see Jackson Bauer. Who knew they would also have a Jack Bauer? He didn't wear 24, he wears 20. Not a great year last year, though. 14 starts and 17 appearances, a 4-6 record with an ERA of 8.41. Gave up 89 hits, which led the staff over a hit per. gave up over a run per inning. Had 56 Ks against 36 walks. That's not even 2-1, right? A guy that gave up a ton of home runs, 17 home runs, 13 doubles, and 5 triples. Batting average against was .310. We expect to see him just because of the fact that, he pitched a lot of innings for him last year. The only guy we expect to see from the weekend initially, right? There's the other guy named Sean Hamilton. They kind of worked his way into the weekend at times last year. Hamilton is another guy that didn't have a great go of things. And again, with an 18-win record, I mean, you kind of see it. But Sean Hamilton was 9 starts in 12 appearances, 1-5 record, 7.30 ERA, gave up over a hit per and right at a run per. Strikeout to walk ratio was basically 1-to-1, 35 Ks against 30 walks, gave up 6 tanks, batting average against .274. We'll see him at some point. But, what's the rotation look like considering the fact that you've got some pitchers that are back? And all of those guys that had TJ last year are back this year. You're just not exactly sure what to expect from them. But as a staff last year, they were 8.63 ERA. It's tough to win games like that. Now, just getting Martinez back will help a good bit there. But, we talked about the numbers. But they gave up over a run per inning last year. Gave up almost 500 runs. And you saw what happened against Tennessee. And Tennessee could mash last year, even though it wasn't the Tennessee that we've seen recently. Batting average against the entire staff is .310. And you kind of work through these strikeouts and walks and that sort of stuff. As a staff, they walked more than they struck out. 337 walks, 321 punchies. Yeah, when you walk more than you strike out and you're giving up a run per, you're going to lose. And you're going to lose a lot. As a staff, they gave up 66 home runs. And, of course, they hit just to 43, as we talked about. We did our offensive preview. Opponents just hit Hofstra just hit 282 as a team last year. And then you have some of your leading hitters off that. But, I don't expect a ton from them. Really the challenge with them, number one, Martinez is a guy that actually got some calls from teams in the back end of the draft last year, even though he was injured. And he elected, I'm going to pass and go back and kind of bet on myself. And Martinez picked as a first-team all-CAA performer without even pitching last year. Just getting him back, a lot of people are excited about him. But you go back to that sophomore year, 6-4, 95 Ks. And so you begin to think, okay, there's something to build from. But he's just coming back from TJ, right? So this will be the first time truly throwing against an opponent in a game that matters. Now, Hofstra is expected to be better this year. They finished in a two-way tie for second in the North Division of CAA. And again, Northeastern, a team that we know well from last year, they're picked to win that division. And their team, obviously, that's got some dudes. Harrison Feinberg, we played against him last year. Preseason player of the year this year. So it'll be an interesting dynamic for sure. But, working through, the numbers, outside of Carlos Martinez, there's just a lot of unprovens on this team. And again, you got some guys back that kind of took their lumps last year. And then we'll kind of see how things go with that. But again, I'm excited. You should be excited. And again, this is a Hofstra team too that has done some things within their league. It's just one of those things you start thinking about. Is this a great first weekend opponent for us? Yes, it is. It's a team that's going to be well coached. I don't know with Frank Calinato in his 5th year there. Guy was in the big leagues for a dozen years. What can they do? Well, in 2022 they went to the NCAA tournament. So they're not too far removed from that, and that of course happens in Catalinato's tenure. But they've been playing baseball a long time. They just haven't had a lot of success on the national level. But in that league, up in that northeastern quadrant of the country, they're going to have some guys that can play a little bit. But they made the tournament as the at-large by winning the tournament. It wasn't an at-large; that they won the berth, right? And they went to UNC and they went 0-2. But this is probably a coach that knows how to develop players, obviously, and a team obviously that's going to play in a competitive league. But from a talent differential standpoint, they're just not going to stand up against Mississippi State, not over the part of 3 games. Now, hey, can somebody get hot? You never know when you're going to run into a hot pitcher. They kind of shut things down for you. And you got to wonder, too, like all the pressure's on us, right? We're the team with the single-digit number next to our name. So you begin to kind of wonder about that aspect of it. How do we manage the expectations, not only of the weekend, but of the season, right? I mean, that's just one of the things that I think about. How do we handle that? Is everybody going to come out of there just trying to knock every ball out of the yard the first time through the order? Maybe. Well, you got a guy like Martinez, obviously, that has some ability, trying to make a name for himself. These are the weekends guys like him make some money. That's important to understand. He comes in here, even if they get beat, but he puts up good numbers against us. Yeah, that's the point, right? As you guys know, there's a lot of teams in action this weekend. Let's just kind of look real quickly at Friday. We'll pick it all later. But, Oklahoma and Texas Tech, that's a barn burner right out of the gate. Of course, Oklahoma picked in the bottom half of our league. Wright State will be at Georgia, Milwaukee at LSU, Kentucky at UNC Greensboro. Look at Nick, always willing to go on the road and play somebody that's top 100 RPI team. Vandy and TCU is part of one of those preseason tournaments. Northern Kentucky's at South Carolina. Nichols at Tennessee. Youngstown State is at Auburn. Nevada's at Ole Miss. Washington State's at Alabama. Of course, Hofstra is here. Missouri will play Mount St. Mary's. UAB is Florida. Tennessee Tech at Texas A&M. UC Davis at Texas. Oklahoma State will play Arkansas. And then, Saturday is kind of that round robin thing. Then Vandy will play Texas Tech. And so a lot going on. But if you're like me, you've been looking forward to this for a long time. And the more that men's basketball has struggled, it has made us even more emergent when it comes to baseball season. And somebody asked me today, why do you think this is? And I'll tell you why. It's because we're tired of losing. We're tired of not truly being relevant the last few years. 3 consecutive losing seasons in football. Yes, this year was better. I'm not in any way diminishing the progress that we made. We didn't make enough, but we made progress, right? But 3 straight losing years in football. We've been to the NCAA men's tournament 3 years in a row. We're extremely jacked about that, very proud about that. Didn't win a game. And then now this year, a lot of people felt like this may have been Chris Jans' most talented team. I think that was just kind of lip service, to be honest with you. I don't think that was a position of authority. I think it was kind of wishful thinking. And I think it's kind of blown up in our face a little bit. And, of course, the Mississippi State ladies, of course, still have a chance to make the tournament. But it's very Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde with them. You never know which team's going to show up. We're going to talk a little bit about the weekend as we get deeper into the show. And then we fired our baseball coach last year. Yeah. And so when you begin to think about what's happened the last couple of years, it hadn't been great. We've had some good moments, but not a lot of great moments. And now all of a sudden, we started getting all this hype about baseball. We go out and hire one of the best college baseball coaches in the country, put together one of the best rosters in the country, and now everybody kind of has us as a consensus top 5 team and a team that's expected to contend for the SEC championship. And you're like, yes, give me that. Give me something to get excited about with the Bulldog brand associated with it. Give me an opportunity to know that we can go out there and compete and defeat the nation's elite. Yeah, where do I sign up for that? This is a fan base that is very, very hungry to win and to win games of significance. And the one thing about Mississippi State baseball, that's the one sport that even our self-loathing segment of our fan base doesn't think we have to lower the hurdles. We know that we can go compete with anybody. I mean, how many times do you see it, right? Right? Oh, well, so-and-so's hurt for so-and-so in football. Man, we got a chance. Oh, basketball's missing 2 starters, right? Oh, we got a chance against that team. You never hear that in baseball. Now, when you hear that, hey, a guy may miss his start, you're like, hey, great. But we never shy away from the moment in baseball because we've learned, right? We know, hey, we have expectations in baseball, and now we have a coach that embraces those expectations. It's like, hey, they expect me to come in here and win an NFL championship. Why else would you take this job other than have the opportunity to win an NFL championship? Would you want to walk into this pressure cooker and just say, you know what, hey, I'm the coach at Mississippi State and let the ballpark recruit for itself? It just doesn't work that way. It just doesn't. And so you've got a coach embracing the expectations. You've got a fan base that is hungry to win. You've got a roster offensively that should be as good as any in the country. And you've got a very talented group of arms with a third-year pitching coach who has been with some of these guys for multiple years now. And so now we should get the chance to kind of reap the benefit of our investment in them. And you bring in some guys from Virginia that are bought into the O'Connor way, that have kind of meshed with our returning players. And the thing that I've learned about ball players over the years, ball players love other ball players because ball players want to win. And I remember being a kid, I won't mention any names, I won't embarrass anybody. Baseball was the great equalizer in Columbia, Mississippi. When we took the field, nobody cared what side of town you lived in. Nobody cared what school you went to. Nobody cared how much money your family made. Nobody cared if you were a member of the country club. Could you put the ball in play? Could you throw a strike? Can you throw somebody out at first base? That's all we cared about. And then as we got older, the friends that we made on the baseball diamond ended up being some of our better friends. And really, baseball taught us a lot about life. And other sports are like that too. It's not just exclusive to baseball. But most of us, baseball is the first game we play. And so you begin to see value in people based on what they can do and who they are rather than where they come from. And so ball players love other ball players because the more ball players you have on your team, the more likely you are to win games. And Mississippi State's got a bunch of ball players. Time for today's Player of the Day, brought to you by closewithblair.com, C-L-O-S-E with Blair, B-L-A-I-R.com. Blair's a closer. Coffee's for closers. He gets more than his share. We're talking about closing loans, getting you to the signing table to make your dream of home ownership come true. Maybe you've been on the hamster wheel of renting, making somebody else's mortgage payment, making them rich in the process. Maybe it's time that you begin to build some generational wealth and put some money in a house. Dial 601-500-2344. 601-500-2344 and be able to talk directly to Blair. Not a call center, not a receptionist. That's his personal cell number. He wanted you to have it. Save it in your phone as Mortgage Guy. You may forget the name, you'll remember the need, and when you need it, you'll have it. Whether you're looking for your first home, your next home, or your retirement home, or perhaps that game day condo, which could prove to be more affordable than you think, Blair's the only name to know. Blair Chandler at closewithblair.com. Get his 25 years of experience and know-how working for you. He can be your advocate with underwriting, which can be a little contentious at times. You need somebody that knows how to construct loans to give you the best chance of approval, and not just somebody that kind of throws something against the wall, hoping it works out. Blair Chandler. Time for today's Top 10 list, brought to you. Oh, I guess I ought to give you your player. It's Ryan McPherson. Yeah, Ryan McPherson is going to be on the bump Friday night. A little bit of a surprise to me. I thought he would go on Saturday. Bulldogs have announced the rotation. Be McPherson on Friday, Charlie Foster on Saturday, and Tomas Valenkas on Sunday. I thought Valenkas would go Friday, McPherson Saturday, Foster Sunday. That's what I thought. So that's what we get for thinking. But we had the names right, just not the order. So Mike Nemeth put out his list today in an article who he thought it would be, and Nemo nailed it, right? Nemo absolutely nails it. But McPherson, a guy that embodies Mississippi State, right? A guy that understands the tradition, the expectations. I thought Ryan last year proved to be one of our most improved pitchers down the stretch. That right-hand spin is very difficult to deal with. It's going to be even better this year. He's put on about 10 pounds of good weight. He's earned it. He has. He's earned the opportunity to start, and we expect big things from him this year. So we'll see him throw out the first pitch on Friday. Hope that you guys can come out and make it. And so Ryan McPherson, your Close with Blair player of the day. Okay. Time for today's top 10 list, and I hope I can make it through this without getting emotional. The number of requests for this list is the greatest we've ever had. I couldn't even make it through the introduction. But as you know, Brad Arnold died. Lead singer from Three Doors Down, the pride of Escatawpa, Mississippi. And we've done Three Doors Down before. We've done Three Doors Down when Brad was first diagnosed with kidney cancer, which took my dad too. And I was hopeful when he got his diagnosis, but this again proves that all the money and the fame in the world doesn't give us control. It may give us hope, but it doesn't give us control. And my brother messaged me. And my brother may be the best Christian that I know, and he sent this to me earlier. I want to share it with you. It says, it just dawned on me throughout the weekend of learning about Brad Arnold passing away that there really is a brotherhood of rock star artists. I read or saw videos of them talking, Brad, and his influence on them. They care for one another and help one another out. Second of all, his faith was a heart of gold in Christ. I never got to meet him, but it feels like I know him. Would have been great to meet him, even though I thought he might pull through. God had bigger plans for him, to be with him. His legacy will live on. And I think that's one of the things that's a responsibility of ours now, is not just to share the music, but to share the message and to share who Brad was. I remember living in Baton Rouge when I saw Kryptonite on MTV the very first time. And they talked about them being from Mississippi. And other than sports events, I root for everybody from Mississippi. I do, whether their music is in my wheelhouse or not. But Brad's certainly was. I had a chance to see them, and the moment means even more to me now than it did then. And we're front row at the Brandon Amphitheater, and it's Seether and Three Doors Down, and I love seeing Seether. They put on such a great show, but I had never seen Three Doors Down before, and that's a shame, honestly. Huge fan of theirs, and I had never seen them. And after the show is over, me and the homie Sam Denton are up front. Sam's talking to some people, you know, we're trying to get set list and all that great stuff, and Brad sees me. And he says my name. And he said, Steve, thanks for coming. So that means a lot to me, obviously. But we have prayed, we have supported, and the thing that I go back to is something Mississippi State defensive line coach, well now analyst, David Turner told me when we lost Big Keith and Little Keith Joseph. And I was really upset then too. And Dave said, you know, Steve, God makes no mistakes. And so I have to accept this. This was part of the plan. Whether I agree with it or not, I have to have some faith that this was supposed to happen the way that it did. So we're doing Three Doors Down again. Now, this may not be your favorites, but they're my favorites. And a lot of these have a very personal connection to me. And but it's been a difficult couple of days, you know, just thinking about this. And I've loved seeing all of the messages and videos that have made the internet in the last couple of days. Many of them from you and from other rock bands around the world that toured with Three Doors Down and got to know Brad. And someone shared a video that I think it's on a Three Doors Down official account that a young lady was a big fan. She had VIP tickets and couldn't make it because she herself was struggling with cancer. And so her husband and this other lady's husband went together. And Brad made a personalized video for this lady and sent it to her. And he sang a little bit of Your Arms Feel Like Home, you know. And Brad had wrote that song about Jen. And that's the thing that I think that made Brad so relatable is that he was one of us. And he wrote songs that made a lot of sense to us. And one thing that I will give Brad and the guys in Three Doors Down a lot of credit is that they stood for what they believed in. And I remember them getting criticized for being one of those bands that didn't require like COVID vaccines or masking or anything like that. They just wouldn't do it. And other people were very critical of them. And Brad didn't blink. He didn't. And he believed in Jesus Christ and he shared his faith openly. It shows. And I don't know there's a lot of people that really do that anymore, especially in the rock community. Everybody's so afraid of offending somebody. But Brad was true to who he was. And I think that's one of the reasons that there's been such an emotional reaction around Mississippi and certainly around the rock community because he was an authentic person. Like people say, he was a real one, right? My whole thing about what you believe in, I'm a firm believer, and I have respect for people that stand up for what they believe. Whether I agree with them or not, I respect their right and I admire their passion to do so. I think it's a beautiful thing. And as we talked about on Monday's show, we don't have to agree to get along. That's my attitude about it, right? And so I can respect the fact that some people bow out of certain tours or events because it doesn't align with their values, and other people play those events. And some people, of course, share political values that I don't. I don't think any less of them. We just see the world differently. And I think that type of tolerance is more of that's real tolerance, right? Some people preach tolerance and then have none of it, right? Like some people preach love and then have none of it. So here are my top 10, and I'll give you a little bit why when we get there. But number 10, a song that I don't think a lot of people know and truly respect. It's one of the rockiest songs in the catalog, and it's Duck and Run. And basically, it's about having the fortitude. I won't duck and run. Like when times get tough and adversity comes, I'm not going to duck and run. And it's one of those songs, too, when they would go play for the troops, they would play, and it always got a great reaction. Number 9, this is a song that Brad referenced when he announced his diagnosis, and it makes me sad now. Because he said it's not my time, but it was. And that makes me really sad. It's not my time, I'm not going. But unfortunately he did. But I think it's one of those things too. It's a song of defiance. It's a song of fortitude. And I think it's one it's everlasting. Number 8, and there have been a lot of people that have shared this one in the last couple of days. It's When I'm Gone. And of course, the video itself is dedicated to the men and women who serve in our armed forces around the world. And I think about those people a lot because I'm not built that way. And they're doing a job that I would never want to do. And so I'm very appreciative of their sacrifice, not just their sacrifices, but their families back home that go to bed every night not knowing where they are, what they're doing, if they're out of harm's way. I cannot even begin to imagine that life. And so I'm grateful. Number 7, love this one. And it was one of those songs, too. It was kind of the highlight of the night when we saw him play live. It's Away from the Sun, and which is kind of ironic for a guy that grew up on the Mississippi Gulf Coast. Number 6, I love the breakdown on this song. I love it, and it's one of those songs, too, that I think people identify with whether you're a loser or not. Yes, it's Loser, which was the second single off the Better Life album, which is a classic in my mind. but I love how they rock it out towards the end. It's just so good. Number 5, when I first did a Three Doors Down list, I had multiple people hit me up and said, Steve, I can't believe you didn't include this song. And I went back and gave it another spin. And I thought, you know what? They're right. I blew it. I did. This is one of the greatest love songs, I think, of my lifetime, to be quite honest with you. And I love the fact that Bob Seger sings on it as well. But it's Landon in London. And it has a real authenticity to it, riding back to Jen. I get to do all these amazing things. I get to travel all these great places. But at the end of the day, I'd rather just be with you. And that's how I feel too. Landon in London is your number 5 track. All right, number 4. The first time that I got Dana's name tattooed on me, and I've got it a few times, and I've got a portrait of her as well. But we're sitting in a little tattoo shop, and I'm looking in the mirror, and she's sitting over there just grinning as I'm getting this tattoo. And I remember when I got it, I was trying to decide between a Mississippi State logo or something about her. It was one of my first tattoos. And so I got a heart, old school American traditional heart with her name on it. And as I looked at her, the song, Every Time You Go, from Three Doors Down was playing. And I remember when it was over, when we got done, the tattoo was done. And she said, well, nobody's ever done that before. And I thought to myself, well, that's true. I mean, but also, too, I did give you my last name, and we've got a house and a family and a life together. But it meant something special to her. And people say, well, you shouldn't get your significant other's name on you. Well, that's why they make cover-ups, right? But no, as I told you guys before, I'm in it till death, right? As long as she'll have me. But every time you go, every time I hear that song, it takes me back to that moment down in Gulf Shores, Alabama. Sitting there in a tattoo chair and getting my wife's name tattooed on me and knowing what it meant to her. And there are times I listened to that song when she was gone, travel nursing, which brings me to number 3. I remember this song has always been so incredibly special to me, but I did not identify with the emotion behind it until Dana was travel nursing in New Mexico. It just didn't. And I was traveling up to New Mexico to go see her. And I got to Little Rock, Arkansas. I'm listening to Three Doors Down, listening to the essentials or the greatest hits, whatever was on iTunes. And Here Without You came on. And I got about 2 bars into it, and I just started crying. And I was at that little turn in Little Rock, right? Where it looks like the interstate goes to the left, but it actually goes right. Like you go left to go into Little Rock. You go right to stay on 40. And I remember that so distinctly because you got to pay attention there. It doesn't have a natural flow to it. But I remember basically listening to that song the rest of the state of Arkansas. I just put it on repeat and just let the emotion of the moment just kind of bathe over me. Because I missed her so bad. And so now every time I hear that song, it has even more special meaning to me. It reminds me that I never want to be divorced from her. Ever. Because I don't want to feel that alone and that despondent ever again. And I don't want that for you either. And sometimes you have to be, right? And it's all like this, when people always say, you're always in my heart. And it's true. I'd rather you be in my arms, though, right? It's just like the old song, you can't put your arms around a memory, right? All that stuff means nothing, man. It means nothing. If we can't have a day-to-day interaction, if we can't spend time together, man, that's just not worth anything. It's just not. I just wasn't built that way. Some of you, I guess, are a little more stoic, or maybe you're just not as needy as me. But I can tell you, I am not me without her. My best version of myself is when that beautiful blonde woman of mine is at home, coming home to me every single night. Number 2, the song that started it all. And I remember the pop-up video. Remember that on VH1? Some of you have no idea what VH1 was, right? It was basically kind of the alternative to MTV, and they had pop-up video where they had these little bubbles that would pop up and give you a little insight. And so Brad, of course, had been the drummer, and then the record company said, hey, let's go hire a drummer, and let's just move Brad out front to sing. And so you watch that video, like Brad is so uncomfortable because he's never had to, like, quote, be a front man. But something about that song, it's about friendship, and it's about relationships. And if I go crazy, would you still call me Superman, right? It's like, I may be your hero, but I have my own shortcomings and weaknesses as well. Number one, and this is a difficult one for me, and it means more today than maybe it did last week. And it means more today than maybe it did when it first came out. But it's be like that. And I think about it now in a different context, because when Brad wrote that, he was dreaming big dreams. He had never done it, right? When he wrote that song, they were just a band trying to make it. And then ultimately they got the record deal, and it turned out to be a big hit. And he talks a lot about, if I could just be like that, what would it be like to spend one day in those shoes? Well, Brad got to do it. He did it. And he's such an inspiration to Mississippians everywhere, because of the fact this is a guy that grew up going to Moss Point High School, and he got to tour the world and show his talent and make people laugh and sing and dance and rock and feel something of significance. He did get to do it. And all of us, big dreams are born in little rooms, right? They're born in little rehearsal studios. They're born in back bedrooms. But for Brad, the dream came true. And I think about the legacy, even dying at just such a young age of 47, is how many people that he has inspired. And like I saw the guys from Save and Able say, Brad paved the way for us, right? And I think about those things. How many guys in Mississippi decided to stick with it? How many guys picked up the guitar? How many guys decided, hey, let's go book some dates. Let's put a band together because of what they saw Three Doors Down did. And they saw the vision and the path that Brad Arnold paved for everybody else. He made Mississippi rock again, right? And that's what I look back and I think about the significant artists that have come from the great state of Mississippi. And to be honest with you, it's been a while since we've had somebody on the rock side that have this kind of influence. A lot of country folks, a lot of blues folks, but it's been a while since we've had a mainstream rock artist from the great state of Mississippi. And, that's one thing, too, about Mississippians that I love and loathe at the same time. We'll have somebody go do some studio recordings out in California and we act like they're John Bon Jovi. The difference to me in Brad Arnold and those people is that Brad did it at such an elite level. He did it at such a high level. He wasn't just a guy that was a guy in the background. He was a guy that was up front. He was a guy that made so many amazing songs that mean so much to so many people. And I go back to Hurricane Katrina, and it's so interesting. I had somebody, a friend of a friend, during the middle of all that was working relief down on the coast, and he texts me, and he's like, dude, you wouldn't believe this. The guys from Three Doors Down are out here filling up sandbags. I'm like, what? Next thing you know, it's on the news, and it's on Facebook, and it's everywhere else, and WLOX is reporting it. But that's not why Brad and those guys did it. Brad and those guys did it because their neighbors were in trouble. They were Mississippi Gulf Coast people, and they went out there and to help, not to get it on Instagram, not to get their name in the paper. They did it because their neighbors had needs. And I saw a lady yesterday from Pensacola that they had some hurricane problems down there, and the very first donation they got was a $10,000 donation from Brad's Foundation, the Better Life Foundation, for hurricane relief. We have lost a very significant person. But I'm so grateful to have been alive when Brad Arnold was, and so grateful to see the outpouring of emotion and support around our state and around the world for Brad. And I could watch that stuff all day. It makes me a little bit sad, but it also makes me happy to realize he had such an incredible impact on so many people's lives. So few of us can make that claim, right? But one of the great guys in rock and roll is gone. And thankfully, he's one of us. He's one of us. He's part of our family. And so as Mississippians and defenders of the rock faith, it is our responsibility to keep sharing Brad's music and Three Doors Down's music. And I think Brent Smith said it best yesterday of Shinedown. Brent said, let's speak Brad's voice out into the unknown. Let's play Three Doors Down as loud as we can stand it. Let's share stories. Let's post pictures. Let's let Brad's name be on the tongues and screens of everybody. And I hope that we can continue to do that. And what's funny, too, is like, I don't know, Brad shared this story when we were in Brandon. You know, the second verse would be like that. He says, you know, she spends her days in North Park. Well, he's talking about North Park Mall. He said, you know, when I was a kid, we didn't have any real malls on the coast. And every year around Christmas, Mom and Dad would bring us to North Park and we'd go Christmas shopping. How many of us did the same thing, right? How many of us lived the same life? And so when you hear be like that and you get to that second verse, it's not the North Park. It's North Park Mall, right? And he made that story and he just smiled and he grinned and he talked about how great it was to be home in Mississippi. And I think sometimes we forget how special that is for all of us too. So Brad, will never forget you. We will do our best to keep your legacy alive, and our hearts and prayers and thoughts go out to your bandmates and to Jen and your family and everybody that loved you and supported you all these years. We're grateful that you came our way and that you made Mississippi a better place. All right, next segment of the show brought to you by Campus Bookmart, a Starkvillian institution. We love Campus Bookmart, and we have. You know what? And it's time to outfit your family for baseball season. Tons of new Mississippi State wares available at Campus Bookmart. You can get that cooler, the acceptable, permissible, security-cleared cooler there as well. You know, bring some bottled water in. You know what you can do. But it's great that you can get outfitted for a day at the ballpark at Campus Bookmart. So next time that you're headed to Duty Noble Field, swing by there and spend a little time with them. And get the latest in Mississippi State merch. You can get some hoodies now and maybe some T-shirts later. As you know, baseball season kind of encompasses a couple of seasons. And if you can't make it to town, visit them on the World Wide Web, courtesy of Al Gore's Internet at campusbookmart.net. And by being a loyal Boneyard listener, we'll give you a phrase that pays. That is BSR, which stands for Beautiful Steve Robertson. That gets you free shipping on all orders over $75. Any order less than $75, absolutely incomplete. Okay. We didn't play well against Arkansas. And it is safe to say that most of the Mississippi State fan base is checked out on men's basketball. I think that's fair to say. Bulldogs now 11-12 overall, 3-7 in the conference, lost 2 in a row. Dangerously close to a 500 record at home. That just can't happen. Bulldogs now 7-5. One of the most frustrating parts of that ball game against Arkansas is they were down a couple of starters. We knew we were going to have to play well, but we thought maybe, just maybe, with a couple of guys out, we'd have a chance to steal one. And that's a tough spot for us to feel like, right? That we got to depend on the other team to play poorly in order for us to play well. And that's just hadn't been a winning formula for us. Arkansas advances their record to 17-6 and 7-3 in the Southeastern Conference. And after watching them play in that ball game, I think they are a team that could do exceptionally well in the NCAA tournament. They beat Mississippi State 88-68. Bulldogs again 11-12 overall, 3-7 in the SEC. Razorbacks led by 13 at the break. We had a segment there where we could have cut it to 5. Like they had a ball that went off the back foot of a player, and it's like a 3-on-9 break, and we turned it over. And they finished on a 6-0 run, of course, the big 3 to cap the half. And it's like, you know what, we were creeping back into it, despite the fact that we hadn't played well. We're right there. And we allowed them to separate and push it out to 13 points. And guys, if we're scoring 30 points and a half, it's going to be tough. They outscored us in the second half 45-38, of course, to win 88-68. We knew Darius Acuff was good. I think he's better than most of us thought. That kid is amazing. Played out 38 of 40 minutes, 9 of 19 from the field, 24 points for him. They had 4 scorers in double figures. Trevon Brazell with 19, Malik Thomas with 17, Billy Richmond with 14. Nick Pringle played well, had 11 rebounds, but just 6 points. Part of it, man, they come out and shooting 50% in the first half. They shot even better in the second half to end the game with right over 52%, 8 of 22 from beyond the arc. If I told you that statistic alone, you'd have thought we were in the ball game. We were not. They only got to the line 12 times. They were 8 of 12. Again, that statistic makes you feel like, hey, State probably did well. No, we didn't. Josh Hubbard leads us with 16. Achor with 15 points, had one big three-point basket. Josh Hubbard's streak ends of consecutive games with a three-point basket made. He was 0 of 4. Also turned it over 3 times. Quincy Bauer with 8 points, a couple rebounds. We're just not getting enough value out of him. We could say the same for Jabari McGee. He's had a few big moments, but in SEC play, it's just kind of lost. Jamarian Davis Fleming, one of the hopes for the future, 12 points, 6 rebounds in 24 minutes. He was 5 of 7 from the floor. King Grace didn't do quite as much, but showed some flashes. You know what we think about him. Jaden Epps, big disappointment here. Just 3 points from him. One made three-point basket. That is his entire offensive output for the ballgame. State shoots 46%. And then just 20% from beyond the arc, 3 of 15 on the perimeter, and give Arkansas a lot of credit for closing out on shooters. We had some opportunities, and they shut it down on us, and just 9 of 14 from the line. So not a great game. And it's one of those things, too, we start thinking, at what point do we kind of start skewing our coverage more to baseball? Well, let me tell you, it starts this weekend. Bulldogs will be in action on Wednesday. We will preview this game on the Wednesday show as we will host Tennessee. 8 p.m. tip. It will be on ESPN2. It's one of those things, too, you look at and say, you know what, probably not going to have a big crowd for this one. I think that's fair to say. Late tip, kind of an apathetic fan base during a disappointing season, and then we go to Ole Miss on Saturday, and Ole Miss hadn't had a good year either. Still a game that sticks in the craw, but the reality of it is we're in a situation now that the chances of us making this tournament are very slim. And it's one of those things, too, it's like you can't keep expecting all of a sudden this team, the light bulb to come on. Hub is clearly frustrated. Teams understand we don't have a third complimentary scorer, and then with Epps not playing well on Saturday, it just makes it very difficult for us to get open looks for Hubbard. And, but yeah, not a lot of toss-ups left. There are a few. But at this point, do you feel like you've got a chance to win those games? Reality of it is not a ton of highly ranked teams left on the schedule, but not a scenario where you look at and you feel like, hey, this is a team we should beat. We can't assume anything. I mean, we absolutely cannot assume anything when it comes to Mississippi State men's basketball. That's just where things sit. And I don't think anybody expected us to be at this point in the season battling to stay above 500. I don't think anybody expected that. Now we're 11-12. It's just not a great thing. And you look behind us, LSU 2-8 in the league, Oklahoma 2-9, South Carolina 2-9. We'll get a chance to play South Carolina. But you begin to look at what's happened with these teams. There's just not a lot to feel good about. Ole Miss right there with us at 3-7, 11-12. We'll get a chance to play them. Auburn's 5-5 in the league. We get them. Georgia's 5-5. We get them. Tennessee 6-4, 16-7. Missouri's similar record. And of course Alabama's a terrible matchup for us. But you got Florida down the stretch too. That's going to be a tough one as well. But the reality of it is you look at this schedule, and it's one of those deals where it just feels like our fan base is just kind of ready for this to be over. That's how it feels. Reading the message boards and seeing social media, it's like when the losing first started in SEC play, there was like a lot of angst. Now it's just like apathy. People have just said, you know what, this is just kind of is what it is. We're just going to have to accept the fact that our NCAA tournament streak is more than likely coming to an end this year. And, we get ready for next year. But, hey, there's got to be some difficult questions asked of Chris Jans, and probably a scenario where you probably have to make some demands on changing some things within the operation. As you guys know as well as I do, our portal evaluations have left a lot to be desired. That's got to change. We got a lot of people forking out a lot of money to help bankroll this basketball roster. They are not getting the return on that investment, period. And that's the thing, is you write that check because you believe in the program. You believe in Chris Jans. And, that belief, I think, has been rewarded the 3 previous seasons, but this year, not so much. But if anybody has earned a mulligan on this campus, it's Chris Jans. While our NCAA tournament record is not what we want it to be, we at least have been in the big dance. And to be honest with you, even if we find a way to make the NIT, I don't even think I would go. I think we're just ready to get this thing over, get into the offseason, and begin working on next year's roster. That's my feeling. Some would say, well, Steve, we need to get reps for these guys. Most of these guys are not going to be here next year. I mean, let's just kind of be honest about that too. Obviously, you want to hang on to Hubbard. You want to hang on to King Grace. You want to hang on to Jamarian Davis Fleming. You want those guys to be kind of your nucleus for next year. Maybe there's 1 or 2 more. But the reality of it is many of these guys will not be here next year. Either they will exhaust eligibility or they will be in the portal. And I think that's a good thing, to be quite honest with you. But you want to keep that young nucleus of guys together. And, that's the thing I think about with Hub. He loves Mississippi State. He loves all of you. But does he entertain getting in the portal this go around? Or is he a guy that's like, you know what, I started here, I want to finish here? I think he's more the latter of the two, but I don't know that. He's been to the tournament 2 or 3 times, so at the very least, he's played in some games of significance, but you begin to wonder, does he consider going in the portal and going somewhere else for his senior year? I'd hate for that to happen, but you have to consider that possibility. But I think you got to do what you can to keep him around and use him as a drawing card with the portal. But again, our evaluations in the portal have to be better. All right, final segment of the show brought to you by the Stark Vegas Clubhouse. The best place to stay in the Golden Triangle, bar none, right? Absolutely bar none, especially for bringing a large group to town, and you should. You absolutely should. You've seen it on TV and movies and thought, man, wouldn't that be great? Well, it's available to you at the Stark Vegas Clubhouse. The old renovated Country Club Clubhouse, just 5 minutes away from the Mississippi State campus, out past the Highlands on 182. Very quiet. Only a couple neighbors out there. We don't want you throwing a rager. We want you to go out there and enjoy some peace and quiet with the people you love the most. Whether it's a baby shower weekend, perhaps a bachelor party or bachelorette party, you can be smart and have a good time, enjoy some of your favorite restaurants and shops in town without the hustle and bustle of game day. Or maybe it is a game day weekend for you. Yeah, wouldn't that be fun, right? Again, the full-service bar, the full-service kitchen, the back porch area, the full-service fire pit, the full-service parking, right? All you got to do is get there, and then everything else is kind of taken care of. That parking thing is probably more important than you realize when you're trying to get everybody together, right? A lot of times you go somewhere and you're so excited to get there, you just need somewhere safe and sound to park the car. And once you've done that, you feel like, hey, the fun can begin. No worries there. Now, Google the Stark Vegas Clubhouse. When you do, their Facebook page pops up. You can peruse all the amenities available to you and your guest. Also, some booking options come up, Airbnb, VRBO. But if you want to save some money, book through the Evolve website. And use promo code BSR10. That's beautiful Steve Robertson, the number 10, BSR10. Gets you 10% off your stay. How cool is that, right? Just by listening to this show, you're saving some money at the elite place to stay in the Golden Triangle. And maybe you're bringing a work group to town. Instead of having everybody scattered all over the county or get 5 hotel rooms, 5 Airbnbs, just stay together. And you've got some common areas to work and some personal areas to retreat and get some rest. The Stark Vegas Clubhouse, the best place to stay in the Golden Triangle. Okay. Big news out of Alabama. And maybe, just maybe, there is some sanity being restored to college athletics. Alabama center Charles Bediako's injunction to continue playing this season for Alabama has been denied by a judge. Sources confirmed to ESPN he is no longer eligible for Alabama. Our friend Pete Thamel reports he comes back later with a comment from Charlie Baker of the NCAA. Common sense won around today. The court saw this for what it is, an attempt by professionals to pivot back to college and crowd out the next generation of students. Here we are. College sports are for students, not for people who already walked away to go pro and now want to hit the undo button at the expense of a teenager's dream. While we're glad the court upheld the rules our members actually want, one win doesn't fix the national mess of state laws. It's time for Congress to stop watching from the sidelines and help us provide some actual stability, end of quote. Let's take a deep breath right here. They get this right. And again, I think part of this is Greg Sankey's statement. Now, you begin to wonder, what does this mean for Trinidad Chambliss? Well, a couple things I would say. One of the arguments for Bediako is that he was still in his 5-year window. It's a flimsy argument, but that's one of the arguments they used. Trinidad is not. Now, what's interesting is Ole Miss has now filed for a reconsideration with the NCAA. They've already denied him twice. They filed for a reconsideration, basically claiming they've got new information. Now, here's what I would say about that. I don't believe they have any new information. I believe, they see these things going around, and there's the comment from Mark Jones on the Division II National Championship broadcast, and then Trinidad Chambliss in some interview said he had 2 years left to play. What he believes and what's true may not be the same. He's also the same guy that believed Mississippi State stole his football jersey before the Egg Bowl. Had nothing to do with us. He blamed us and talked about that just shows you what kind of school Mississippi State is. So please spare me all the talk about, oh, he's such a good dude. That's not been my experience. He's a hell of a football player. But that remains a quote of contention with me. And I think maybe perhaps the fact that Ole Miss is filing for a reconsideration says a little bit about maybe their own confidence in getting this TRO, to getting the injunction. This is a great day for college athletics because of the fact it basically shows the NCAA's eligibility model is holding up in court. Now, that hadn't always been the case. The NCAA has had a pretty good record when it comes to eligibility cases, but, you've had these things like the Diego Pavia thing, which leads to all these other issues. And that's the thing that people say, well, nobody's hurt by this. That's just not true. Because for every time that a guy is given an additional year of eligibility that they're not entitled to, there's a high school kid somewhere in the country not getting a college scholarship. There's a trickle-down effect in all of this. Now, there's some people out there that have had some real issues, right? And I don't know how Trinidad Chambliss felt in 2022. I have no clue. But I would submit to you, if Ole Miss had new information, then it makes it interesting to me. How does that information jive with what Ferris State has already said? They said he didn't play because he needed to develop, and their competitive circumstances at the time were more important. Like they were looking to repeat as national champions. They're not going to play a first-time starter. That's fair. And as I've said on this show multiple times, you don't get to the end of your career and say, wait a minute. Well, now that I'm able to play, I didn't get to play much my redshirt freshman year. I want that year back. Ferris State said it wasn't a medical issue. Ole Miss is trying to say it was. And some people have said, well, he got a medical year that year. Well, that's not how the process works. Just like Cannon Boone, right? He had to exhaust his college eligibility and then file a waiver for a medical hardship. That's typically how it works. There are some exceptions, right? But that just wouldn't be the case for a redshirt freshman that wasn't expected to play anyway, right? And by some of their own reports, he was a full participant in practice. So he could practice but not play. Doesn't make a lot of sense to me. So the Bediako thing was a complete farce. My honest opinion is, I think Alabama should be sanctioned for this. That's what I think. I think they knew the rules. They tried to rewrite the rules mid-season in hopes of salvaging what looked like a very mediocre season. Well, now he can't play anymore. And I commend the judge, right? You have initially had an Alabama donor recused himself. Another judge took over, and the right ruling was made. And it's difficult for me to take anybody seriously that says, well, he should have been eligible. No, he should not have been eligible. Period. I know that we're still redefining what amateurism looks like in college athletics, but when you have somebody that goes out and signs a pro contract, it should be done. And some would say, but Steve, international players get to do it. Well, you know what? If that's the premise we're going to use, then let's outlaw that too. Well, some of that's basically semi-pro. Pro is pro, okay? But if that's what we're going to do, if we're going to use the fact that some kid from Australia played pro basketball in Australia and then comes to the United States to play college basketball, then reject that too. Those are my feelings. Because if we're going to use that as the precedent to basically say that players that played in the NBA G League should be able to play, and I know some others have been granted eligibility, they shouldn't have been, period. You don't get to stay in college forever. You're not Bluto. And for some of you young bucks, it's an Animal House reference. If you haven't seen the movie, you should. Yeah, you've seen the guy, Jim Belushi, with the college shirt on, right? A million times as a meme. That's what it's from. College was never intended to be a career. Not academically or athletically. And it shouldn't be. This is the right ruling. And again, if I'm Ole Miss, and thank God I'm not, I look at this and say, you know what? This may not bode well for us, but I think there's probably a scenario here where Trinidad may get the TRO and then eventually get an expedited hearing and not get the injunction granted. I think that may prove to be the case. But if I'm Ole Miss, I'm worried about this. I'm worried about this because this is a player that maybe not under the same circumstances, but some of the same language in the suit itself is expected to be similar. Now, Trinidad, again, is trying to get another year based on a medical hardship thing, right? But a lot of people have challenged the eligibility rules of the NCAA, basically trying to rewrite the rules of a private organization whose members are well aware of the eligibility model once they join. This is what the membership votes on. This is the rule. This is how things should be. And I also think, too, like when you begin to work through all this stuff with Trinidad Chambliss, you begin to think about the other issues involving Ole Miss. How does that play into this, right? The tampering allegations. In addition to all of this, right? Do I fault Ole Miss for trying to find a competitive advantage? Absolutely not. But I think it's absurd that Ole Miss is trying to say, yes, this was a medical issue, and then the people that presided over his medical care in 2022 say it's not. Unless there's some information out there that I hadn't seen, and I didn't really dig into this until he got denied the other day. But to me, if you've already been denied twice, you're going back for reconsideration. If they had valuable information, they would have already presented it. And they're going back a third time. And again, that makes me think that maybe perhaps they're a little bit worried about how this other decision sits. Maybe that's correct. We'll see. On the women's basketball side, as you guys know, we still got some work to do there. Got some winnable games left. I guess when it's all said and done, you hope that's the case, right? I just don't know for sure what to make of this team. Again, we talked about being Jekyll and Hyde. They've won some games they probably shouldn't have, including the one in Tennessee. And they've lost some games they shouldn't, including the one in Starkville against Missouri. But, Wednesday, we got some other stuff coming up, I'm trying to get here and look at this. Sometimes I think the SEC website is like taking such a step back. I know we talked about last year how bad the schedule was. They got that fixed a little bit, but it's still not great. Right? It's still not one of the things you look at and say, man, look at the innovation here. It's like we've gone back to like dial-up or something. It just takes a long time to get things done. But as you guys are well aware, and ladies did not have a weekend game But they will play Thursday against Georgia, and we will preview that game on the Wednesday show. But looking at the standings, kind of where we sit, and again, there are some winnable games down the stretch. We get that South Carolina game behind us, but we still got Texas and LSU to go. We're a modest win streak away from middle of the pack. But we're not in a scenario, obviously, where we can afford to drop any other games. But you start thinking about what you've got left. Arkansas, obviously, they're 0-10. Florida's 3-8. Of course, Missouri's 4-7. That's a game we wish we had back. But you start thinking about winnable games. Georgia, 5-5. We got a chance. We do. We got a chance. But it's not one of those things where you look at it and say we can take anything for granted. Because, again, I just never know. One game to the next, like you guys, who's going to show up and do some great things? You don't know. Mississippi State softball gets off on a great start this past weekend. And, again, softball already getting things going. Coach Ricketts, doing a good job here at Mississippi State. And, again, we get into SEC play, which is, arguably the most talented conference in all of softball. You got Florida and Auburn and all these great teams to deal with. But Bulldogs open up with a 4-0 start out in Waco at Baylor. And just kind of ran through the field out there. You mercy ruled the host school Baylor 10-0 in 5 innings. And then you get Northwestern State 9-3. You get Wichita State 5-2 in 8 innings. And then New Mexico, the Lobos, 8-1. So you feel pretty good. And then we'll host Southern Miss on Tuesday at our place. And then, of course, we have the Alex Wilcox Memorial Tournament this coming weekend, Valentine's Day weekend. Murray State, Rutgers, and North Texas will be a part of that. So it's going to be a busy week for Mississippi State. They'll play 6 games this week, so a chance to kind of really get out of the gate strong. But congratulations to our players and coaches for a very successful win at the Getterman Classic out there at Baylor. And so it's going to be a kind of busy stretch for a while, with softball, baseball, men's basketball, women's basketball, and then not too terribly long from now, we'll start spring football. So there will be a lot of overlap. So we'll have a lot of coverage. Good time for you to come join us over at genespage.com. And, we do our best to cover everything. And in the years ahead, we're going to add some other staff members and do an even better job on the women's sports side. But you can upgrade and save 50% off the annual VIP membership. If you're a monthly member, it is kind of transferable. And, of course, when you become a subscriber to Gene's Page at the full amount, not just, you can't take advantage of the promo, but when you're a full paying subscriber to Gene's Page, you get full access to the Paramount Plus streaming platform, right? So if you jump aboard for 50% off this year, you don't get Paramount Plus, but once you become a full subscription price member, you get that as part of your subscription. So you can elect to pass on the promo code because it works out too, where you get the benefit of the genespage.com website, the power of the 247 Sports Network, and Paramount Plus. And I remember it's so funny too. A couple years ago, some people said, I heard that's going away. No, it's not. It's not going away. But all that understood, it's a busy week for us, but man, we are so excited for baseball to be here. And I'm excited for all of you, right? Because we've made such an emotional investment in Bulldog sports really the last couple of years. And again, we had a decent men's and women's basketball season last year, and we're happy to make the tournament. Obviously, the women advanced a little bit further. But we haven't had a whole lot of things of true national significance to really get excited about. Probably one of the biggest things was that win over Arizona State in week 2 of college football. Then we finished 4-0 in non-conference and thought, hey, we're in a great spot here. And then we ended up going 1-7 down the stretch. And then we make a bowl game basically because of the opt-outs. No matter why we were there. And then we couldn't pull that off. And so you guys need something to cheer about. And that's one of those things, like I talked to somebody in the industry today. We were talking about this kind of stuff. The things that move the needle for us is winning big and coaching changes. Like to be mediocre and be a year or 2 away from a coaching change, it just doesn't drive numbers. Because when we're losing, like you guys don't want to read about us losing, right? When we're winning big, you want to read everything you can get. Like you go back to that 2014 season, you know as well as I do. You listen to every podcast. You read every article, no matter who wrote it, even if they recycled some of the same quotes, because you just couldn't get enough about Mississippi State sports. You know, ESPN obviously writing features on Dak Prescott. We're like, oh, this is great. You know, we're getting the national spotlight on our program. Mississippi State wins College World Series in 2021. You read it all. You bought every T-shirt you could find, right? So we need some great moments of fandom. And I think we're going to have that in baseball season this year. I think you guys feel that too. But this fan base clearly needs something to get truly excited about. And listen, the schedule itself for baseball, it's going to take a while before you have that moment when you begin to think, hey, you know, we are good this year, right? And I think that probably comes when we head to Arlington. Because you start working through this, like Hofstra, yeah, we should sweep that series. We should. Then we get Troy coming in that Tuesday, then Alcorn State, then Delaware, right? We should win all those games. We should. Didn't always. We should have beat Troy last year. But we couldn't score against them. Then you get Austin Peay. So, you know, if I'm being honest about this, like what my expectations is we start running through this, yeah, we should be undefeated when we head to Arlington. We already got our credentials approved. We're happy to go. And again, State opens up with Arizona State, Virginia Tech, and UCLA once we get there. And I think, too, as a friend pointed out, too, you got Thomas Valenkas going this Sunday. That would have him being paired up with UCLA if it holds. And then, of course, as soon as we get back from Arlington, we're headed to Southern Miss. You know, last year that was the first non-conference game of the year, first road game of the year. We went down there and couldn't get it done. But when I look at this, I begin to think, hey, you know, I feel pretty confident we'll get at least a couple when we go to Arlington. But if you get them all, think about the environment that'll be down there at Hattiesburg. So if you're in South Mississippi or on the Mississippi Gulf Coast, maybe go ahead and get your tickets for that game. Be thinking ahead, right? And even if you're in Starkville thinking, hey, you know what, Steve, I'm going to plan to get to everything. That's going to be a 6 p.m. first pitch on a Tuesday, March 3rd. Go ahead and secure your tickets now because you know they're going to be selling a lot of tickets. They're going to be buying a lot of tickets. Southern Miss good baseball program. And I had somebody here in the industry tell me, don't be surprised if you have one or two mid-major teams that make Omaha this year. Well, you know, you had Coastal last year, right? You had Murray State last year, right? So that's not, I don't think, the hot take that they thought it was. But I think it's one of those things, too, where mid-major baseball is getting better. People thought the transfer portal would just kind of raid those schools. I just think they're doing a better job of developing. They're doing probably a better job on the front end, maybe not taking so many developmental pieces, but getting some guys in that may be a little farther advanced. You know, maybe they're thinking about this year. There have been some schools that have hit the junior college ranks a little bit harder in that mid-major era. So I think you're going to see some interesting midweeks around the country. And I think because a lot of that is because you're seeing these teams get better. The Sun Belt was a great conference last year. Great. Obviously, Coastal played for a national championship, right? And Coastal and Southern Miss had some great battles, And I like it when Southern Miss is good. I do, and I like it when they're good and we beat them because of the fact it only helps us in the RPI. But I love the fact that the state of Mississippi is a baseball state in many respects. We all love football, but it's so great that everybody typically in Mississippi plays for something of significance. I think that bodes well for our high school teams because they all say, hey, I have an opportunity to play college baseball here in my home state. I've got an opportunity to play at a home state school and have a chance to get to the NCAA tournament and play on the big stage. That hadn't always been the case. And so we're still the kings of the crop, but I think it makes us better because we have to recruit a little bit harder, and also we've got to play a little bit harder too against them. There used to be, I remember a time too, like the Southern Miss games, we just kind of went through the motions. We have to go play baseball against those guys now. And I remember a few years ago, I guess 21, when Preston Johnson just kind of came out of nowhere. Like the staff knew what he could do, but our fans didn't, and he goes out there and just annihilates Southern Miss in the game down at Trustmark Park. And so, of course, now we're playing a home-and-home with them, which is probably the better thing from an RPI standpoint. But, again, I'm excited. You're excited. I think we're going to have a season to remember this year. As I mentioned earlier, if you hadn't done so, come float with us at True Rest Float Spa of Starkville, 662-268-7601. You can speak directly to my lovely wife, Dana. Valentine's Day special, right? You've put it off long enough, you can get 2 floats for $99. What a great, great gift. It's a very unique gift. Give you an opportunity to come with your significant other. You can float at the same time, but not in the same pod. And you can experience this and have plenty to talk about, right? You could just do the same old thing, but why not give a gift that makes somebody's life better, improves the quality of their life? We've helped a lot of other people and may be able to help you. And also visit DutyNobleBook.com. You get signed copies of all my sports titles, including The Dude. But Flim Flam, Stark Villains, Alpha Dogs, Dogpile, and the personal memoir, When the Bottom Falls. I get a message about that over the weekend. People are passing that book around, and people message me and say how much it's helped them. And I hope that's really the case. And, of course, come join us over at genespage.com. 50% off right now, 50% off the annual subscription price. That'll carry you all the way through the new year and through the portal season and everything else, and you won't have to worry about where you're going to get your Mississippi State news. Come join our merry band of misfits over there at genespage.com. Hope you guys have a great week. I'll be back with you on Wednesday, but until next time, let's all live our lives in a way we make more friends and enemies, and people can see a difference in the way we live.